So there's a lot of people settling.
Yeah.
She said, looking at Pete.
Look at this one.
The timing of that.
He wants me to dress up as a burglar.
It's a really common fantasy.
At 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
I'm going to rob this house.
Hello and welcome to the Therapy Crouch with me, Abby Clancy.
Me, Peter Crouch.
And our gorgeous guest. Introduce yourself.
Hello, guys.
Hey.
Mel here. I'm so delighted to be here with you.
We're so excited to have you on. So excited. We need you to analyse our relationship later on, if you don't mind.
Later on, I already am.
And of course,
You think
Elizabeth
this has just
Day's
been
here.
just-
Thank you, Peter.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Peter. Here I
Here, I'll
am.
leave you out.
At the end of your... Can I just say, I know it's called the Therapy Crouch, but the actual couch is really superior.
It's
this is a very,
beautiful.
very comfortable sofa.
Yeah.
So thank you for having us.
No, thanks so much for coming on.
This is good for us because obviously we call ourselves therapists.
No, we don't.
We just called the Therapy Crouch, to be fair. But I would class you as both as experts, really.
Thank
They're
you so
real
much.
experts.
Yeah, so hopefully you can enlighten us.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
Mel
a
definitely
I'm a
can.
huge fan of your podcast, How to Fail.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I love it. So
Thank you. Peter, do you listen?
I haven't yet, but I'm sure it's amazing. I'm sure if you listen to us, probably not. You know?
none of our friends listen to our podcast,
really?
which is great because we can
liberating.
talk,
We can talk
about them all
Yeah.
the time
Love
and just,
that.
dish all the goss and they
Yeah.
they never know. So it's all good. And my dad's your biggest fan.
really?
He's a proper fan of the show.
He calls us all the time about Married at First Sight, all the time,
Oh,
doesn't he?
what's
Yeah.
Dad's name?
Jeff.
Jeff. Oh, Jeff.
Yeah.
Hello, Jeff.
Big Jeff.
How did you get together? How did your relationship blossom?
Our beautiful story.
A lovely couple.
Well, I was a guest on How to Fail. That was how we met.
Very like Jeff Clancy, I'm a huge maths fan.
Yeah.
And so I loved watching it for all the obvious reasons. It's just reality TV at its finest. But I also loved watching it because Mel is so fantastic on that show. Her expertise, her insights, her humour. And I became slightly obsessed with her. And then because I have a podcast, it's a great way of meeting your heroes.
Yes,
And
exactly.
so she came on How to Fail and we got on like a house on fire. And then we discovered we have this very unique thing in
yes.
common,
Yes.
which is that we both met our husbands online at the age of 39.
Oh my God. Which is rare.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
And quite late
Late.
in life. Yeah.
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 Like husbands,
Because
luckily. That was the big reveal.
We're sister wives.
Yeah. Can you imagine? 'Cause I always think that, God, I think I would hate to be single now.
Oh,
You know, because the whole
hard.
date, like we met in a club. You know, I was walking to the loo. He stopped me, begged me for my number.
Not quite how it went, really.
Yeah.
But the whole online dating thing, like,
So yeah,
It's
but I
hard.
didn't realise you both met like online.
We
Was it?
did,
Wow.
but that's several years ago now, isn't
Yeah.
it? And even talking to people who are single now, it's changed so much since
really?
then. Yeah, I mean, it's very disposable, in the approach to dating now. I talk to a lot of people who are single and they say when they're on a date, it almost feels like the person's constantly looking over their shoulder to see if there's
Yeah.
someone better.
like a
Yeah,
speed
that's-
dating thing.
Right.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get that personally, but I get that it's kind of because it's such a when you meet
quite
someone you're in,
transient.
aren't you? And you're not
Yes.
looking really anymore. But with that, you're just swiping all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It becomes an addiction, maybe.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think it comes with this illusion of endless choice,
Yeah.
which can feel quite overwhelming sometimes because then you're constantly swiping thinking, is this the right person or is there someone better? Is there someone who will meet every single one of my checklist points? And that's where I went wrong. So I was single in my late 30s, post-divorce. I was like really at a low point in my life. And that's when I didn't take the advice that I wish I'd had from Mel, which we've dispensed on the How to Date podcast, which is to date yourself first, to really get to know yourself. And I just threw myself into dating and the apps. And I was trying to get together with someone who I thought was my type.
Yeah.
But actually, obviously my
If you
type...
don't know yourself as
Yeah,
well.
how do you know
don't-
your
yeah.
type? And none of my types, quote unquote, had worked for me in the past. All of my relationships had failed. And it was actually when I stopped being wedded to the checklist and when I stopped thinking there's always going to be something more perfect, that's when I found the one.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Doesn't it?
But when I look back, we've been together 20 years. Wow. We met when I was 19. Pete was 24. I'm 40 in January.
Wow.
Pete's 44 now. And when we look back, it's it fascinates me how we've survived and are still so in love. Obviously, we have our up and down days, but because we were completely different people then. Like when we go to look back at our wedding, it was bonkers. Like,
we're just totally different people.
Completely different people. Like the choices we made and we've stayed together. We've grown together. No, people grow apart.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key.
But I don't know how we've done it. I think Pete's probably just very tolerant.
But you obviously both have a really good level of communication, about this is where I'm at. Even if you're not overtly discussing it, you're obviously very much in sync with each other because unless a couple grow together, 20 years is not going to last. You're doing something right here, guys.
And to throw 4 kids into the mix and 2 dogs and 2 cats, it's like...
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that strikes me, having just met you, if I can be a cod psychologist, Mel's the real expert. I'm just here for the anecdotes. But, you clearly have similar values. Like we've come into your beautiful home. It's filled with animals and your family members. Your family members are part of your team. And that's clearly something that's super important to both of you.
It is.
And that's a core value. And you can really tell. I think
it cry.
Oh,
that's really beautiful.
I do tend to make people cry.
I should, but I haven't.
Well, the two of you create this
so
incredibly beautiful
Thank you.
environment.
That's a huge compliment.
And you get a feel for a couple, don't you, when you're in their home? That's what's unique about the two of you inviting us here to your actual home. It's not just a studio. We get to feel what it's like in your presence, in the dynamic of your relationship. And it is really relaxed and welcoming and quite beautiful.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
We get to use your soap, which is delicious.
Yes,
it smells so good. Lovely.
Yes,
I noted that.
It was a present, actually. It's really nice.
So what was why did you start the podcast together?
So I like to put work out into the world that I wish I'd had at the time I was going through a particular experience. So How to Fail, my OG podcast, was all because I felt like a failure in my late 30s. And I wanted to see if other people felt like that too and what to do about it. And How to Date is something else that I wish I'd had, a resource that was both cheerleader and coach that could talk me through how to date. Quite literally, it does what it says on the tin. It's a podcast masterclass, but it's also super entertaining. So our ambition is in 8 weeks with 1 bonus episode, we will take you on the journey. We will show you how to become date ready. We will show you how to meet someone. We will show you how to nurture the most important relationship you'll ever have, which is with yourself. And at the end of every episode, there are sort of take homes and there are downloadable worksheets. So we're really there as your crew. And that was the idea. I was like, I want to do this podcast, which is a limited series. So it doesn't feel overwhelming. It feels like you can access it. And I want to do it with the one and only Mel Schilling. And literally, she was top of my list, the only person on my list. And I'm so delighted that you agreed. It's her first ever podcast.
You should do it as a TV show. Can you imagine?
Oh my gosh.
Well, you're not the first person to say that, my darling.
That would be amazing, though, because you could get all
I think so
different
too.
people who are...
Yeah. Well, interestingly, one of the things that drew me to this project so dearly is that I get to go deep on those topics that I don't get to on TV, because the show's so fast moving and, it's all little snippets of, sometimes we'll have a couple on the couch in reality for an hour, sometimes even 2. And you might see 3 or 4 minutes of that on the show. So I love that we get to take a topic that I'm really passionate about and there's no time limit. We can go deep. It's not edited. It's just us having real conversation. And I'm getting to explore so much more of those thoughts that I have in real time.
What do you think is the most valuable asset, foundation for a solid relationship?
That's the question I
Oh, you see,
you probably say better than makes sense.
Key ingredient.
Key ingredients. I'm not very articulate.
No, you are.
You are. You're doing yourself down. I won't have it.
I'm going to send you my book.
I need
to read my book. It's about confidence for women. Yeah, it's all right for you.
Sweating as well.
What is the ingredient?
Yeah.
I think it's about dating yourself first. We talk about this concept of self-centered dating, which isn't about being selfish in dating. It's about putting yourself at the center and thinking about, what do I need? What are my needs in a relationship and in life? What are my values? What are the things that are absolutely important to me about who I am and how I want to live? And then taking that out into the world and saying, well, who actually fits with me? As opposed to that idea of just kind of blowing in the wind and responding to people who are showing interest in you.
But with How to Fail, going back to that quickly, was that hard to kind of like, you say you felt like a failure. I don't know if you genuinely did feel like a failure. Like, to like put yourself out there and kind of say, right, this is me. That must have been hard.
It's quite a brave title.
It's very vulnerable.
It is. I don't think I thought about it enough in the sense that it was very instinctive. Yeah. And I genuinely, sorry, I need to cover Mel's
blue socks. For all you audio listeners, Mel's got blue socks on, black pants.
Black pants.
You were getting along lovely.
Her feet are really big.
They are my big toe in particular.
Foot fetishes out there. Come and see us both.
Big feet, big personality. I thought it would just last for sort of one season, and I would put it out there, and it was just something I wanted to explore. And I knew that the title was arresting. Like, I knew it would ask a question of the listener, and it did feel super vulnerable putting myself out there. But there was something that compelled me to do it. And it's genuinely that I wanted to know the answer. I wanted to know how other people coped with failure and what they learned from it and how to get through it. And it's taught me so much, not just through my amazing guests, but through my amazing listeners. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this too, but podcasting was a space that rewarded authenticity.
Yes.
And my background was in print journalism, and it was quite a difficult fit sometimes. Whereas with the podcast, I could turn up as myself.
You're your own boss.
Exactly. And some of the things that I felt were most personal to me, or most unique, or most weird, or most embarrassing, when I spoke about them on the podcast, it turned out that so many
people felt that way.
Yes. Yeah. And then that made me feel less alone, and that gave me the strength to continue. So it became this really beautiful gift.
That's how we feel like that with this podcast, because, we started it. Because Pete did his podcast, and then he was like, because, at the time, I didn't really speak much. I'd like do my photo shoots or back in the day. So we started this pod, but even for us, it was like, I know it's called Therapy Crouch, but it is like therapy, because it's not often you sit down with your husband or your wife and talk about, do you remember when we first met? Do you remember that funny thing that happened to us? Do you remember when we, went on that holiday or had that fight? And the sense of community we get from our listeners, and they write in and go, I'm going through cancer, and you've made us laugh. And Pete's a bit like, they're laughing at our real life. This is our life.
It's so funny, and we're going like, no, genuinely, this is how we live.
This is not comedy.
It's such a funny relationship. I was like, no, honestly, every day, this is what we do.
But it's so rewarding, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's real. Yeah. And like Elizabeth was saying, podcasting does reward authenticity. No one's going to listen to you if you're faking it.
No, definitely not.
People know, because it's such an intimate medium. You're right there in someone's ears. They can hear every breath, every hesitation in your voice. People know if you're being real or not. And so, that's why people would follow you, and hopefully us with this journey as well. It's about being real and giving real advice that people care about.
And actually, part of the reason I felt like a failure is because I was embarking on dating for the first time since I was 19, because I've been in like long-term monogamous relationships from 19 to 36. So then that's
a long time.
It's so long, and then it's quite harsh reality to sort of embrace. I'd never really been on a date, let alone been on an app. And I had to get very used very quickly to rejection. And something that Mel has taught me through How to Date is that when you are dating, you just need to accept that rejection is part of the game. And once you've accepted it, it's bound to happen. It's actually quite liberating. And in the same way with failure, if you accept you're bound to fail, no matter how hard you try, it's actually, it sort of frees you up then to experiment more. And you're amazing at helping people deal with rejection. There's a whole episode on How to Date, which is devoted to that and to building up resilience. And we're big believers in the idea that when you're rejected, there's always a seed of protection or redirection within that rejection.
That's nice.
And there's also a bit of data acquisition that you can take. There's feedback that you can take about what to do differently next time, what choices to do differently, and what's worthy of you. And that person is not worthy of you, or eliminating themselves from your dating inquiries. And it brings you one step closer to true love.
But I bet you there's a lot of listeners who will listen to your podcast who are in relationships and are thinking, this isn't right, this isn't working, and how do we get out of that and start again?
Maybe, because a big premise of what we're talking about, even though it is about dating, is being true to yourself first. And I think you're right. I think there could be people who could listen to it and think, oh, actually, when I consider myself in my current relationship, am I having my needs met?
Yeah.
Am I able to be my real self? Am I showing up in a way that is really me? Am I able to be open? Is it a safe space? Is it non-judgmental? People might ask those questions. And whilst that might be a little difficult, could be challenging, maybe that's a good starting point for a conversation with themselves.
Yeah, I think so. So there's a lot of people settling.
Yeah.
Like you've
said looking at Pete. A lot of people.
The timing of that.
No, but like we've got loads of friends who are clearly in unhappy relationships, and it breaks my heart. I'm like, God, you both could give so much to other people.
I also think like it takes so much. It takes a lot of bravery to get out of that cycle.
That's what I mean.
As well.
But I think even this how to date, like if you're in a relationship and you're listening to it, you could go, oh my God, actually, I want a date. Get me on that.
A lot of people are scared about that. About exiting a dysfunctional relationship because better the devil you know.
Sure.
And we're often quite fearful of change. A lot of things have to be in place in order for you to make a big change like that. I mean, you've been through it. It is monumental to step out of a relationship.
Yeah.
And I want people to listen to How to Date and realize that, okay, if I was to step out of this relationship into the dating pool, I feel a little bit equipped.
Yeah.
I know I'm not alone. I have some self-compassion. I have some skills that I can apply and maybe I can do it.
That's amazing.
Someone once gave me such a great piece of advice when I was in the death throes of my first marriage, where it was really an unhealthy, dysfunctional relationship. But I was super scared about leaving and I wasn't sure if it was the right thing. And my friend said to me, there's no loneliness like the loneliness you feel in a couple.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so true that actually I was already feeling this crushing loneliness. And actually, if I were on my own, I realized it would be easier to handle.
Yeah.
And I think if you're at that point, I can promise you, as someone who's been through it, there is a whole other life on the other side of this. And although you might feel frightened and you might feel panicked because there's this sort of blankness in your future, that's also a canvas on which you can paint something entirely new.
And you can paint whatever you want.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that little snippet, what you just said there, I think that will resonate with, there'll be certain people listening to this going, oh my God, that's me and I can do it. And definitely that will make sense.
So.
We've never been on dating apps. I hope you haven't, because I haven't. I suppose it wasn't really
It wasn't really around
when we were kids. So, for some complete novices, how do you navigate them? How would you navigate?
And what is the demographic for dating apps? Is it like kids to 60-year-olds, or is it
and beyond?
Like how do you, you might do you pick kids?
There are different apps for different needs.
Okay.
So there are, I think, before you even venture onto the apps, I'd say start with yourself and think about, what do I want? What's my dating goal? Am I ready to just go out there and have a whole bunch of different experiences with different people, lighthearted, maybe hookups, experiment with my sexuality, for example?
Yeah.
Then there's some great apps for that. Or am I now ready to settle down and have a serious relationship and get the commitment happening? Different set of apps. The problem arises, I think, when people muddle that up.
Dementia too.
Yeah, that's right. Where they're saying to themselves, I want a really deep, meaningful relationship, but I'm skipping around with all the apps and having lighthearted connections. It's a bit like saying, I want to run a marathon, but in order to train, I'm going to jump hurdles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think about there's apps where you can just like date a famous person and stuff.
Raya.
What the hell?
I know.
Well, they're after you, aren't they?
Or date a millionaire.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
If only they just said that in the title.
Billionaire, baby.
Yeah, with Raya, when I was in my late 30s and single and I was living in LA for a while, and my friend had got on Raya, which was new back then, and you had to be nominated and approved and all of this.
Quite
and she was
famous.
like, oh, I'll nominate you. And I was like, I won't get in. Sure enough, they never got back to me. I never got in. And I ended up meeting my now husband on Hinge. And then a few years later, the VIP head of Riot emailed me saying, we'd like to offer you a complimentary membership to our app. And I was like,
too late, sister.
You snooze, you lose. I've met my Justin on Hinge.
Yes.
But I think my top tip for navigating the apps, again, it goes back to this core principle of knowing yourself first. Because I experimented with lots of different apps. So at the time that I was dating, it was like Bumble was the top one, basically. Tinder was a bit scary and was known as the hookup app, although that's changed a lot. Bumble was the one where famously women made the first move, which sounds all empowered and feminist, but actually makes you feel really vulnerable because you're constantly having to put yourself out there.
And putting your more rejection.
Exactly. Exactly. Then there was OkCupid, which was just completely bonkers when I was on it. There were a lot of paramedics on OkCupid, and a lot of them were posing with their ambulance equipment in the background. And I was like, I feel you should be focused.
Save a life.
Save a life.
Wow.
We talked about what our,
what you'd put on
what
it.
you'd put as your profile.
Well, this is the interesting thing. So then I joined Hinge, which had only just taken off in the UK. And Hinge is known as being the dating app for thoughtful people. Again, I think that's changed. But it had many more questions and sort of conversational prompts. And I remember one of the questions was, what competition would you win if you entered it? And this is such a niche answer, but I was at a stage where I just thought, I'm just going to be myself. I'm just going to put down the first thing I think of. And it was...
What did you put?
So weird. I can't believe I found someone. Best toaster of crumpets.
I'm a good toaster of crumpets.
Thank you. What's
Slightly
secret?
burnt.
Yes.
I put mine in twice.
Thank you.
Loads of butter.
Loads
Mash the
of
butter in.
Do you let it melt for a little bit, then spread? Or do you spread straight away?
I have the Lurpak spreadable.
So do
Sorry,
I.
not an ad, but so it just
me
goes
too.
straight on.
And
God, with
then
crumpets,
Vegemite.
Yeah.
I would say Marmite because I'm a Brit.
Vegemite.
Do you like a sweet or a
Controversial.
savoury?
Savoury.
Me too. Or like mature cheddar with a sprinkle of salt. Yes.
Avocado.
M&S do the most incredible
Salivating.
cheesy truffle crumpets.
Oh my God, I haven't tried them.
Wow.
But that's the key mistake people make. They under toast a crumpet and then it's just like
I hate
flabby.
squishy.
Yes.
Do you ever have piglets?
Yes,
yeah,
but
they're
they're a bit.
yummy too.
They're very nice, but they perform a different function. They're a bit too thin as a baked good for me.
Yeah.
I like a thick, butter soaked.
Yeah, I do. I had them last night, didn't I?
Vegemite.
Yeah, big fan.
I
of
got the
crumpet.
brown ones. I thought I'd try
But we would have connected over that. You putting that question, I would
Exactly.
have gone, oh, I like them slightly
You would have
burnt as well.
swiped.
What would you put? What would you
had
put
a
for
date, you
yours?
two.
What do you mean?
What competition would you win?
What
Yeah.
competition would I
Probably
win?
the FA Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the
Get
ultimate
a few
flex.
hits on that, baby, and
I was going to say like a keepy up competition. I forgot about the actual Champions
No, the
League
FA
or whatever.
Cup. Yeah. That would have been a good one.
This is a paid advertisement from BetterHelp.
Yeah, comparing yourself to others is something we've all done, whether you're watching someone talk about their life on a podcast, seeing it unfold on social. It's tempting to think other people have it so much better than you.
But here's the thing. Comparison can be a thief of joy. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start to live your best life.
As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise.
Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp.
Visit betterhelp.com/therapycrouch today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/therapycrouch.
I connected with Justin over that and the fact that I swore in some of my answers, and he was like,
love
he
that.
said, "I fucking love swearing." On our first date, I was like, so to fucking I. And those are the things that was like, that was me being real, and that's what helped me find someone I truly connected with.
That's lovely.
My husband, it was about his photos because they were hilarious.
Okay.
I saw the humour through his photos.
Really?
Yeah.
So what kind of photos?
Kissing
we
his
talk?
bicep.
Nice.
And there was one of him and another guy at Oktoberfest eating a hot dog together, one on each end.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because it's hard to know what grabs but doesn't like give you the ick.
Yes.
It's hard to know what's cool but like, oh. You know what I mean?
Because you said what would give you the ick for a man if it's like, I like, cycling my bike up the mountain.
Yeah.
Or like playing a guitar around a campfire. See, I'd quite like that.
Yeah.
I like the guitar, the bike, yeah.
But I think I don't know, it's I just think it's a bit stereotypical. Like if I'm sitting there with a puppy, playing the guitar around a campfire. I think that's I'm tapping into what I think women want.
Yeah. It's too manicured.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't think he really wants to be holding that puppy.
What would your ick be, Abby? On a dating app, if you saw someone?
You got loads. We went through this the other day about feet.
I don't mind other people's feet. I just don't like my own. I don't like a man with a weak run.
A weak run?
No, like,
so there was video footage of him running.
You know we had a discussion about niche ones. Like, and Ab was like, a man with a bad run.
Okay, is Tom Cruise kind of he's an amazing runner if you watch him in The Firm.
He's a good runner.
Yeah.
What were the other ones?
Strong runner.
Great ones.
I don't like a skinny jean.
I'm with you there.
Yeah. Yep.
A voice is important to me.
Yeah.
Masculine voice.
Yeah.
We saw a good, Ab pointed out a good looking man in, where were we?
In boots. He was gorgeous.
I actually went off.
It's a secure man who can do that.
Yeah. You know, she said it to me and I went, oh, he really is. I hate him. And then he spoke. I went, thank God.
Oh, just in a horrible voice.
Oh, no.
Not a sexy voice.
Like a guy who
do the voice, babe. Go on.
It's like that. It's just like,
oh no, turn off.
I don't like a man who gets cold easily.
Oh, wow. Very specific.
I love your
right.
Yeah, like that's
biological.
That's an it. No, like I want my guy to be giving me their coat. You know, like not shivering.
Yes.
I'm not shivering.
Okay.
Okay. Half socks. I don't like a half sock. But mine are all quite physical.
Yeah.
What's the biggest turn on for me is kindness.
Yes.
And someone who can make you laugh. I don't like a vain man.
Yeah.
Like I don't want him looking in the mirror and all that.
Yeah.
So we're not really in the mirror-y people, are we? Well, I am more than you.
We?
Do you know what, Abby? If I was to listen carefully to what you were saying there with those icks, I know some of them were funny, but there is a theme running through it there. And you're talking about pretty traditional masculine traits, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
does that mean you want like to be looked after or something?
I want to feel safe.
Well, that's right. It sounded like you want someone to protect you and to make you feel safe and to make you feel protected. Is that what's going on there for you?
Instead, I've got him who's scared of spiders and mice.
I very rarely get cold.
Can you get
my run is fantastic.
He's very warm. I can feel it from here. And a deep voice.
I'm sorry, I'm obsessed with this live therapy.
I know.
Do more.
Yeah, let's do some more.
It's beautiful. I love that you said that because, Pete's sitting right next to you and he's offering you all of that.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why we're still together, I reckon.
Yeah.
He's a good one.
I have to say, I really relate to that need for safety and kindness. And it made me realise being in the right relationship that safety is so romantic.
Yes.
And I think where I've been going wrong in my past relationships with some of them, I've been going for sort of flashy, love-bombing narcissists who would say really good things but wouldn't follow through with action. And with Justin, when I met Justin, the chemistry was immediate, but we were both cautious because we'd both been bruised by failed relationships. And so we really concentrated on building a solid foundation. He's a big believer in pacing. He'll laugh when he hears this because it was a bit too slow for me. I was like, why aren't you whisking me off to Rio? And why aren't we starting now? But actually, now I compare it to a sort of slow burning, solidly built bonfire, and that lasts so much longer and is so much more romantic because I feel so safe and secure within that rather than a fast fizzling out firework where you don't really know where you stand.
We've talked about it before in our pod, like the girls who like the bad boy.
Yes.
They get like treated like shit and they love it. Like, what?
Was that you, Mel?
That was me.
Can I
dated all the bad boys.
Please do. What is that? Why? What I don't get about it is
I don't
know. Why would you want someone
so
who
many
treats you
people
badly?
do though.
I think it's often
sexy.
about, no, I don't even think it's about him. I think it's about her. I think it was about me. It's about self-worth. It's a form of self-sabotage, So for me, I went through that. In my 30s, I was single for my entire 30s and I dated all the wrong people. And a lot of them were emotionally unavailable or geographically unavailable. I love to date someone who lived overseas or who travelled constantly, but choosing the guy, or it might not even be gendered, could be a girl, who is someone who misbehaves, someone who is unpredictable and dangerous. Sure, there's a excitement about that, but also unconsciously what you're doing is putting yourself in a situation that is going to fail, that is not going to be a sustainable relationship. So why are you doing that? Is it because you're not ready for a relationship, or is it because you don't deserve a good one? Is this what you think you deserve?
Yeah.
That would be the question I'd be asking someone.
And is it the thing that feels familiar? Because familiar might have the illusion of safety, but just because you know it doesn't mean it's right for you. In fact, sometimes it can mean exactly the opposite. It can mean you're falling back into old patterns, that's how you've been raised to see love as sort of unpredictable, difficult to get. Yeah. Is that something that is deep-rooted in your past? And that's something that would hopefully come out from dating yourself first. Like, even though it's a catchy phrase, there's something really important about that, about getting to know who you are and understanding your motivations for things.
Do you know the what is very tricky about that situation you were in there is if you're going for the bad boys all the time, then you go, do you know what? Now I've got to settle now for someone who could be seen as could be quite boring.
That's what you found, didn't you?
Do you know what I mean?
Is it?
It's not boring.
But he wasn't love bombing you. You know, he wasn't.
Oh, yes.
Justin. Sorry, Justin. She didn't find you boring. But if you're listening.
No, you're so
did.
right.
And you're right.
What I'm trying to say is you don't actually have to settle for someone boring.
No.
Someone obviously a little bit more safer than a Hellraiser.
But I love
Do you know
what you're
I mean?
saying that because you're used to this. You up and down, all the highs and lows. And of course, you get the dopamine hit with all those highs. And then you meet someone who's actually good for you, who's actually going to be kind and is going to fill your cup.
It doesn't have to be boring, is what I'm trying to say.
You might have to be boring. You might experience it as boring to begin with.
Yes.
But that's why it's important to give people a chance, even if you think they're not your type and they don't fill every little box on your checklist.
That's right.
Because the reason you're experiencing it as boring might be that you've had really dysfunctional, toxic relationships in the past. And actually what you're experiencing is kindness and safety and someone who's giving you agency to make your own decisions.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there are some just really boring people, but they might find their match in an equally dull person who undertoasts crumpets.
Yeah.
So there's some
boring people definitely undertoast. They definitely do. How would you navigate if your friend or sister or someone you love is in a relationship where you think it's, number one, not good enough for them, or they could do better?
This is a tricky one.
Yeah.
And not everyone will like the advice that I'm going to give, because I'm going to say, if you're a friend, you hold the space for them, you make yourself available to listen, but try not to give advice.
Yeah.
That's why I say that.
I completely agree.
I agree with that.
Because I've done it where I've actually said something and it didn't go well. And actually, I think you risk losing the friendship.
100%.
And then
they have to work it out themselves.
Yeah.
They do.
And then also, you know, what
and
if
you'll
they
be
end
there
up,
to pick up the pieces.
what if they end up marrying them and stuff like that? And then you're just,
said it.
you're then like, they both know that you don't like them and you're just distanced
Well,
completely.
hopefully they won't end up marrying them.
But also there's something about, as a friend, you're not an objective expert, you know, because you love your friend and you've got so much invested in them. And so your advice is not going to be objective, you know. So if they're really struggling, maybe encourage them to find a coach or a therapist, sure, so they can get that professional support. But I think really as a friend or a sister or a relative, your job is to create that safe space and to let them know that they can land there with you. You're not going to judge, you're not going to blame. They can fall to pieces or they can celebrate, and you're going to be there for every single emotional moment.
Yeah.
I would say, sorry, the one exception to that is if someone's in physical danger.
Absolutely.
Obviously,
of course.
Then
You call the police.
Yeah.
You do not hesitate.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this conversation, so I'm happy to keep it going if you don't mind. I just, as you are relationship experts, I've classed both of you in.
Well, that's quite cheap.
We would. Would you mind turning the tables on us a little bit? What key questions would you ask us if we were participants on Married at First Sight?
Well, I would, let's assume you're maybe halfway through the experiment, so I've gotten to know you a little bit.
Okay.
I would ask what happens between you when there's conflict. How do you deal with that, guys?
A fight. Well, in the past, one thing we have thought about is that you don't really stick up for me that well. But you do now. That was like a historic problem.
Okay. And so how did you have that fight? Not so much what it was about.
So
how did you do that conversation?
I'm probably more hysterical, and Pete would walk out.
Okay. So that's interesting, and that's something that we can deconstruct here. So you're talking about a bit of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You're moving toward the problem.
Yeah.
And Pete, you're moving away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is classic. We see this in couples all the time. Most people, when there's conflict, they either move toward it or they move away from it. So it's really helpful to understand as a couple, what are our two styles?
Yeah.
Sometimes you both move toward it, which can be explosive. Sometimes you both move away from it, which can be avoidant, which means it never gets resolved. And here what you're describing is one partner chasing it and the other one running from it.
Yeah.
So this is where communication becomes so incredibly important, and both talking about what you need in conflict. So Pete, you might say, when these fights come up, I actually need a moment. I need to get away. I need to go and process, need to go into my cave, spend a bit of time. And you have a need in the moment to express it, but he's maybe not in a position to hear it. So what can you do with that? Maybe you could...
I'll call Kaz, my best mate, and that fucking bastard.
Absolutely. Call your best mate, or sit down and write about it, or make a voice note. You've got to get it out. You absolutely have to get it out, but it's about the timing.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't do is like, Ab would call Kaz, Alfie.
You never have an outlet.
She'd have 5 different people to vent to.
Yeah.
Whereas I would not, I'd go out and I'd go on the golf range or something, and just on my own, or
walk
I'd
the
have
dogs.
a beer or walk the dog.
Yeah.
But we
on my own.
We don't fight. We don't have arguments.
Right.
We'll have like a little bicker, but we never have. You know, like if you go on holiday with your girlfriends or couples, and after 3 days they're like irritating you, they're in your space, you need them, you just want your house to yourself. We have never felt, we like pretty much moved in with each other after like a few months, and we've never, well, I certainly haven't, you don't get on my nerves around me. We don't have blazing rows, and like if we have a fight, it'll be like, you know, I'm doing everything with the kids and da-da-da, you know.
You talk about it.
Yeah, we definitely do now, but it's definitely
improved
since we've been doing this podcast, because we actually talk about things, and we can, a hand on heart, say we don't fight, do we, Pete?
No,
ever?
No, not really. No.
Not really.
Because you communicate well, and you both got a sense of humour about it as well, it feels like. So if you were to say, oh my God, I'm doing everything with the kids, I can imagine it wouldn't be that far until you're both laughing.
Yeah, that's correct.
Which is so healthy and lovely to see.
But like in the past, we've had screaming rows, but not for a long time. I scream at Ross more than I scream at Peter.
Yeah, Ross gets it big time.
Poor Ross.
I'm quite,
Ross.
I can't stop until things are morally correct.
How do you both argue though? How do you both argue? Like
how do you argue as a therapist or?
How I argue, so a bit like you, I don't really argue with my husband because I think we communicate. We've learned how to communicate really well.
Yeah.
Partly because we've both been married before and we've had failed relationships and we've both done therapy. That's really helpful too. So we will have disagreements, but we will manage, I think, to talk through them. But I'm much more conflict avoidant, so I'm much more of the Pete in this scenario. And Justin's half Italian, so he's much more like voluble about things. But what I appreciate about him is that he is able to name something he's feeling in the moment. And that gives me really helpful feedback as to how to respond. And I was saying to Mel on the way here, because we were talking about how to handle conflict as part of the How to Date podcast. And I used to cry really easily. So I would get very het up in a conflict situation and cry. And it really annoyed me because I wanted to feel powerful and I wanted to communicate anger. But actually what was coming out was this emotion and frustration. And I think it's my worst feeling is like not being seen, like not being understood or heard. There's something that feels so dangerous and sort of unfair about that for me. And that's when I get really, I almost don't know what to do with myself. So it's safer for me to take myself out rather than actually express it wrongly.
Yeah.
So Mel's taught me a lot about navigating all of that. But we a bit like you, the longer we're together, you've got this great phrase, you need to learn your partner.
Yeah.
Like I now understand how he processes things and he understands how I process things. And so that makes it a lot easier. How do you argue?
Well, my Gareth and I are probably a bit like you two. I'm a bit like you, where I want to talk about it in the moment and he needs time to process it. So something I've learned in terms of learning your partner is sometimes I'll put it in a text to him rather than saying it in the moment, because I know if I try and say it in the moment, he probably won't hear it. He's not in a place to hear it. But if he can have it written down and take it away and go and process it in his own time, he'll come back and we'll talk about it, and it works quite well.
Do you know, but I sometimes, like if you've stormed out and I'll do that text and I'm like fuming, I'm like, and then I take a breather, delete it, and then just send him a thumbs up.
That is a great, that's genuinely a great tactic, I think.
Then
there's nothing more like passive aggressive than a thump. Like if you do a big long message,
that's
right?
passag,
And then someone goes,
as the kids say.
well done.
Oh, she's doing it. That was actually hilarious. That's hilarious.
But good on you.
Or as we'd say in Australia, on your mate.
I don't know. Do you experience this with social media as well? Because it's helped me a lot when it comes to social media, taking power back in terms of reacting. So when I first started out on Instagram, I would be very reactive if someone said something critical. And my default is always to think that the criticizer is right and that I've done something terribly wrong. Like I'm just going around the world waiting to be found out. And I've got much better at understanding I will have that instant reactive sense where I want to make something right. I want to defend myself. And I've learned never to act on that.
Yeah.
So true.
I've learned that from Peter. I've learned that from Peter. Because if I got something, I'd be like, oh, fuck you.
And Abby will read, there'll be 3,000 beautiful comments, right?
Yeah.
And you only reply to the one negative, right? And you're like, I'm like, why are you doing that? Why don't you take all the positive and go like, this is amazing, twat, amazing. Whereas you would take that and you would only think about the negative one.
That's the negativity bias. Do you know our brains are built exactly for that? If you go back through evolution to the caveman, cavewoman days, our brains were built so that we could scan our environment for threats.
Right.
We want to look out so we can protect our family. Sense. Is there a woolly mammoth coming to steal my children and take my food?
Oh my God.
We are constantly scanning for negative things in the environment or threats. And that's what our brain hones in on. So that's a perfect example. If you're scanning through 100 positive comments and there's one negative one there, that's the one you remember. That's the one you hone in on.
And do you know what? Like Abby's got this thing at the moment, like it's a bit of like how it's a big problem. It's like the health anxiety. So, but I think that goes along with what you're saying there. It's like my babies. Like, what if this happens to them? What? And you're always looking at the biggest problem. Whereas it's not a big problem. You know what I mean? It's just a cold. It's not pneumonia. It's just a cough. It's not
catastrophizing. Yes, I totally relate.
Everything.
I totally relate.
Ugh, it's exhausting.
Yeah. Well, it is.
Well, listen, I feel like we're really helping people. Should we help the audience?
So do I. Yeah. I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, I feel like you've helped us a lot, and it's great listening to both of you. But we like helping the audience on the Therapy Crouch, and we've got a segment called the Agony Abs where we help. We'd like to hear your opinions. Sure. Agony Ab.
Has this got to show up how bad our advice is, though? Is this wise?
It's teamwork, guys. We're all in it together.
You give great advice.
I have a dilemma. My boyfriend recently told me he has a kink. And honestly, I was intrigued until he told me what it was.
Oh, God.
He wants me to dress up as a burglar.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Not in a sexy Catwoman style way, an actual full-on balaclava and gloves situation.
That's quite sexy if you've got nothing else on.
He says he finds the idea of being robbed exciting. I love him, and I'm happy he trusts me enough to tell me his fantasies. But I feel like I'm about 2 steps away from breaking into my own house just to turn him on. Do I go along with it, or is this a red flag I should be running from?
Do you know what I would say to that? First off, it's a really common fantasy.
Balaclava thing?
So interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
In that gender dynamic.
Well, I don't know about the gender mix there, but certainly the excitement of a crime being committed and that leading to sex is definitely a very common, very normal kink or fantasy. So the first thing I would say is it's pretty normal. And, don't feel that this is a strange thing that your partner's saying. It's fantasy. This is the thing about kinks, I think, is you've got to remember that it's fantasy. And it's about adding something new to your sexual experience.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say I'm going to give this listener a bit of homework. Go and watch Baby Girl. Have you seen it? It's with Nicole Kidman.
It's not yet.
No.
It's all
is that
about
where she's with the young boy?
Yes.
I haven't seen it. Is it good?
I think it's brilliant. And it's all about this woman, and she's a hotshot corporate CEO. And she discovers that her kink is BDSM. So it's having this younger man kind of control
BDSM?
her. What is it?
Bondage, degradation, sadomasochism.
It's sort of control, like someone controlling you in the
Is that like
sexual
50
act.
Shades of Grey
Yes.
vibes?
Yeah,
Exactly
someone's
that.
dominant, someone's submissive.
Yeah.
Yeah, control games.
And what I think is amazing about that film is that it shows that sex can be play, that as long as you do it with consent and you talk about it with your partner first and you say, this is what I'd like to play with, can we try it out? And it doesn't have to be deadly serious. And it's not like you suddenly have to turn method actor and be Marlon Brando in a balaclava. But you could try it out and have fun exploring it together. It could be funny.
Yeah.
Like that's the worst that could happen, is that it's a bit funny.
I think when someone hysterically laughs during sex, that's not good.
No.
Why isn't it good?
I don't know.
As long as you're not laughing at your partner.
I know.
Because that would be off.
Yeah, but like, if I came in a balaclava, I think you'd laugh your fucking head off.
Great foreplay. Laughing together is such a great foreplay.
I always think when I always think when dressing up and things like that. Like, you remember, I don't know if you're a fan of Designer Fools and Horses, but when Rodney puts on the gladiator suit for Cassandra, that would be me.
I don't know, but it doesn't sound sexy.
It's like that. Was it in Modern Family where he was asking his wife to put the Matt Damon mask on? In bed?
Oh, that's hilarious.
Matt Damon mask and the American footballer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I get it. And he's asked, and I think he feels confident enough in his
that's
relationship
right.
to say, I'm into
And
this.
that's great.
There's trust
You know?
there.
Yeah.
So I reckon give it a whirl. I don't think you
for
should be
it.
running, you know. Oh, I'm not the therapist there, you know.
Yeah, no,
but-
this is teamwork, mate.
Yeah. I don't think it's a red flag. I think he feels confident enough to raise it.
Like Elizabeth said, as long as there's consent, you know, that's something that we've got to emphasize here when we're talking about pushing those boundaries sexually. You've got to talk about it. And you've got to make sure that both people are comfortable, not just at the start, but all the way through.
Could you come down the next day and eat your double toasted crumpet after you've just been shagging a burglar all night?
Yeah,
You
I
could
think
steal
so.
it.
Could
You
you
put
do
it in your
that?
swag bag.
Yeah, we could steal it. That's hot. Continue it into the next day.
I think that's great. I get it. I think you
Yeah,
can
well, I
totally
bought a
fine.
balaclava for skiing, so I'll put it on like that.
There you go. You're prepared.
One thing just to stipulate here is just let them know you're going to do it, because you might get a whack if you come in the house and you go, all
Yes.
bellied up.
You might get arrested, and then that's a very
mental
different
baseball bat
fantasy.
to the head.
Yeah.
You know, so just let
Fair
each
warning.
other know you're going to do it.
Okay, good point.
One more. I recently got sent an anonymous sympathy card. When I opened it, it read, "Your husband is cheating on you. Sorry." I can't see the postmark, but the stamp is part of a Nelson Mandela collection, which read, "I will get victory." I confronted my husband and he denied it. It's just, I can't shake this feeling.
No,
we have
that's
two
horrible.
little boys and I don't want to destroy their lives based on an anonymous card. I feel devastated and incredibly anxious. Advice.
Wow.
Horrendous.
Okay, that's a change of tone.
Yeah.
This is concerning. Yeah, I'm interested in what I wish she was here. I wish we could ask more questions about what happened when she confronted her husband. Wow.
My advice, I suppose it's going back to what we said earlier about there's no loneliness like you feel when you're in a dysfunctional relationship. And it strikes me that if she is receiving this card and her immediate reaction is not, there's absolutely no way. Like there's clearly a seed of doubt there already. And that suggests to me that the relationship is not where it should be. Yeah. To give a safe, kind, supportive situation to both her and their children. And so in a way, I don't think you're risking anything by asking him about it again.
Yeah.
And I really think that you will get a sense as to whether he is telling a truth because you know parts of your partner.
Yeah.
And if you feel he's not telling the truth, then I promise you that there is going to be more life on the other side of this relationship. And it could be that the relationship you have next is a new relationship with this partner, but you've confronted something that you had to confront. And maybe you'll get a bit of therapy and maybe you'll work on that and you'll evolve together and grow together. And maybe it will be better for all of you to go your separate ways. But you really need to ask the questions, as scary as that feels. I promise you that you can handle the truth. And I think that's what I would say.
That's dodgy for me then.
I think that's right. I think it sounds like she's perhaps asked the question in maybe a fight. You know, maybe it's blown up and, I received this, which is understandable that she would have incredible emotion around this. But I think you're right. I think she owes it to herself and to the relationship to have an actual serious moment, a serious conversation with him about this.
Yeah.
But people are so messed up though as well. People could fancy a husband and try and sabotage them and break them up. But that's unlikely, I think.
Yeah, I think the most likely scenario
is definitely.
But if there is a chance that someone is sabotaging him, and can you imagine as the man in that situation how you would feel if you're like, oh my God, like my whole life is crashing down because someone sent a note here and it's not true.
And that's why you have to have the conversation.
Yes. And an open conversation.
She'll know he's lying.
Yes.
Benefit of the doubt, open mind, listen to him, give him a chance, but also watch how he behaves. She'll know if he's lying.
And people can make mistakes and it could be like a one-off thing. And if he was open and honest and said, I have done this, but actually haven't done that, I realise I definitely want to be with you and I want to make it work. And then they could start again.
Exactly.
And there's a big conversation.
I was in an awful relationship once and I remember just getting a vibe, female intuition. And I could see him interacting with this woman at a party who I'd always had suspicions about. And I remember confronting him saying, did anything happen between you two? Because they'd recently been on a business trip together. And I remember his response being,
You're crazy.
I can't believe you would ask me that question.
It's about you. He made it about you.
I can't believe you would, and not once did he answer.
It's a deflection.
It was total deflection and it was a bit gaslighty because he'd never answered the question. And that for me, looking back now, I think that's pretty obvious, an admission. But at the very least, that's what you would describe, Mel, as a pink flag. It might not be fully red, but it's pink flag and it's something that you have to pay attention to and just remember that and start, it sounds very clinical, but like gathering your evidence.
Yeah, of course. Because I think when you get answers like that, if it was to come out later down the line, they'll say, well, I didn't lie to you. I didn't say it didn't happen. Because that's what people do. Many of my friends have been in that situation. They're like, well, I didn't say I didn't. I never lied. And just like, well,
very manipulative.
Wait, I wanted to ask a question of you, Mel, which is whether you would match Abbey and Peter if they were contestants on Married at First Sight.
Oh, yes. Now that I know you, I mean, just this conversation has really brought out the shared values like you identified when we first sat down here, which we noticed from just being in your home. But also, I mean, a few things have to be present for a relationship to work. Chemistry is one. You guys have that in abundance. Yes.
Sweaty, don't I?
Yes.
I've got sweaty palms as well. So
I'm going to the menopause.
At least you're not feeling cold because she's straight out the door.
Yeah, he's not cold. He's warm.
We sweat together really.
I love that. Couples who sweat together. I love it. So you're both committed. There's compatibility. The communication is great. I mean, tick, 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 guys.
Also, you wouldn't say this, Mel, but super hot couple. I know because it's all about getting deeper. But
Yes.
Thank you.
And super hot.
Very nice. Okay.
So nice.
All right, let's move on. Peter, as a man who has seen more than his fair share of Abby's fleece dressing gown, I need your help. I don't know we have a thing where I go mad. Abby does Agent Provocateur shoots, right? And I see her on these film, and I go, oh my God, she looks incredible. Right? Straight home in a fleece dressing gown.
I love it.
I love a fleece dressing gown again.
My fleece dressing gown.
Yep.
I've got an amazing one from John Lewis. Same colour as my cat.
What
There
colour?
you go.
So it doesn't show up the cat hair. God, I'm sexy.
What colour you got?
Ginger.
Ginger.
Yeah.
Same as my
Mine's
dog.
gingery. My dressing gown,
Oh my God.
Are we talking about dressing gowns?
Sorry.
But I put mine went over my clothes. That's so terrible.
Yeah,
Look,
like
my house
AM at all. There's literally no AM.
Puts it over her chastity belt. She locks that firmly.
Jeans, there's like belts, there's vests. I just
I tie it at the back now, and it confuses him so much.
Yeah,
He's like, how do I get in?
Anyway, he says here, my wife has the least sexiest bedtime routine you could imagine.
Oh God!
And I don't know how to bring it up without sounding like a complete knob. She gets into bed in fluffy socks, an old
With
hoodie,
cream?
an old hoodie, and what can only be described as prison issue pajama bottoms.
That sounds like me. That.
Yeah.
She then slathers herself in full body layer of moisturiser so thick that if I as much as brush against her, I feel like I'm going to
Slide off the bed.
up on black ice.
She's like a greased whippet under those layers.
The worst part is more. The worst part, she genuinely seems confused as to why I'm never in the mood. Abby, how do you tell her to ditch the thermal survival gear without sounding like a pervert? Or is this just married life now? Help me out. He's Steve. He's not even a nightmare.
Good on you, Steve.
It's a bit of both.
Steve's having a nightmare.
It's a bit of both, I reckon.
Well, so how does he rate? Does he raise it? Or I mean, I've raised it over the years, haven't I?
Yeah, you're just like, get that fucking dressing gown on.
I say I'm going to fucking burn that thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think it's always good to talk about the positives as opposed to making it a criticism. So he could say to her, babe, I love it when you come to bed
naked.
Okay. I was going to say, or in your agent provocateur.
Yeah.
That's my Aussie version of a beautiful French word. So talking about what he loves when she does something different. So rewarding different behavior as opposed to reinforcing the slathering and the warmth.
And I would also say something like, I love your body. And that's why it's so amazing when you come to bed wearing your
of it.
Yes. Like something like that, because you're leading with love and with kindness and with something that's going to make your partner feel really good about themselves rather than feeling shame for wearing their fluffy socks.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I can completely relate to. I love a fluffy sock.
I think you could just... It's hard, like when you have kids and stuff, like you can't be going to bed like in full suspenders and crotchless knickers at 8 o'clock.
I get that.
And then by the time they're asleep, then it's fluffy sock and dressing gown time. You know,
hard.
So you have to...
You have to make an appointment for sex.
You have to make an appointment.
Yeah.
You have to make an appointment. That's not sexy. Appointments aren't sexy. No one's ever got that.
But do you know what's less sexy?
If you're pretending, if you're role playing as a doctor.
Yeah,
exactly.
True, At 9 o'clock, I'm going to rob this house.
Put the kids to bed quick. It's an emergency. We're being robbed.
But also, I would advise Steve to ask his partner what his partner would like him to show up in bed.
Yeah.
And do it that way so he's making himself vulnerable too, because maybe she would rather he wore something different.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. How do you feel about Pete's pajama game, Abby?
So I'll tell you a funny story. So if we have an argument, he comes to bed fully clothed, like pajamas buttoned up to the top, like it's a punishment that I can't see his naked body. It's like the most ridiculous thing. I'm like, oh my God.
I don't know. Like, you're not getting in this.
He's depriving you of.
I'm like, so if he comes to bed in his pajamas, buttoned up to there, I'm like, shit, what have I done?
What have I done? I don't know why I do that. I do that, and I have no reason
It's
why
like
I
you're
do that.
protecting yourself.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I don't know, like, because I do like to sleep a bit more free.
Yeah, you don't sleep with anything on.
No.
But we go to bed. You go to bed with the shorts on, and then take them off.
Yeah.
Lucky me.
And wait, and you're fully clothed.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's got a fleece dress going on. Yeah, yeah, totally. I don't know. Like,
No, I take mine off and put them back on.
Yeah, I don't know. The analogy was I said, I don't know if it's probably wrong, but
Love pajamas.
I love
Until
pajamas too.
menopause.
Yeah.
Carry, and then it's hot.
Yeah.
Take them
I
off,
get it.
put
It's
them
not,
on.
but I think like every single night, I don't know. Sometimes it's nice. Like, it doesn't have to be like.
Well, if you're doing your routine, like if you're putting your tan on, you have to put your pajamas on so the tan's not all over the bed.
Before we go, we'd love a chance to get to the bottom of bonk beats. We're obsessed with the phrase.
Tell us about it.
It was coined on this podcast, and it's basically a soundtrack to your sex life. Where do you
love it.
stand on putting music on
Love it.
I'll just tell you where it came from. So it was originally they were on different playlists, a man and woman, and he was Swedish House Mafia, I believe. I think it was her. No, she was Swedish House Mafia, and he wanted the theme tune of Titanic.
Oh my gosh, that's
It's probably not how you would imagine it. She wanted to rave, and he wanted to slow it all down. And I think the bonk beat is so
that's
important.
That's a big thing because if you're not on the same page sexually.
Yeah.
So it's
about mood, isn't it? What kind of mood are you wanting to create?
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the idea of putting music on for a sexual experience because you're setting the scene. I love candles and lighting and doing all of that.
Yeah.
For me, I don't have a list, but I'm going to go home and create one tonight. And what will be on it? For me, what I love is 70s soul.
Oh, yeah.
That's my go-to.
Right.
Bit of Barry White.
Sexy, love it.
What did you say you put on,
Barry
Ross?
White?
Marvin Gaye, also great.
Yeah, but if you went on a date and you went back to their house or something and then it just went down, 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 down.
Yes, that is.
That is so sexy.
Oh, you're into it?
Oh, yeah. I'm so
Seriously? Yeah, but if he turns around quick as well, it's like he puts it on and he goes
Down, 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 down.
let's get on. Into it. Oh my God,
I'm so there for
I'm quite
it.
shy about all the sexy stuff, aren't I? So I think I would. I'd have a heart attack with that because I'd know it was coming.
Yeah.
Coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Pressure on?
Yeah.
Too much pressure on it.
Yeah.
Where do you stand having on bonk beats?
I was thinking about this because I do really appreciate a bonk beat, but I don't think I've ever had sex to music.
You got to start tonight.
really
You're
have to
missing out,
start.
girl.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
I would choose Genuine's Pony.
Oh my
You filthy
God.
bitch.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that.
I'm weirdly a huge 90s hip hop fan.
Yeah,
Me too.
nice.
Oh my God,
big
that's
fan
my
as well.
favourite
Yeah, really
music.
into that. Yeah.
Love it. It's a whole new side of you, my love.
I know.
I love
and
this.
obviously it's in Magic Mike and I can visualise Channing Tatum with a tool of some description.
Yeah, I understand.
Of many descriptions.
Understand the tool.
But the rhythm of it I love.
Tool belt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, love a tool belt.
Yeah, little
Pete's got a tool box.
Oh my God, stop.
Honestly,
I'm going to be writing to the therapy couch next week.
We got therapy couch after hours. I'll tell you.
One day I bought this toy for the kids and he just went into the garage and pulled out this toolbox. I'm like, who are
Do you know
you?
what?
Where the hell did you get this?
I'm not a handyman, but I don't have to go look at me doing my tool stuff.
No, I think you do. I think you must do more of that, actually.
You should put that on tonight with your balaclava.
Okay.
Yes.
Balaclava,
Okay.
tool
What
belt.
are your bonk beats?
No, see, Abby's a bit she is a little bit prude with regards to, I think music-wise, I think that would make you physically ill if I put
I'd
on.
probably put a bit of Arctic Monkeys on.
No, you wouldn't.
that's
You
a
wouldn't.
good
Kings
one.
of Leon.
Not bonk beats.
yeah.
Kings of Leon.
But we were inundated with people writing in going on
Was that girl who was like WANKING? Can't say it out loud.
Okay.
To that song.
That's intense.
She said that she just it was on in the background and she didn't realise she was doing that to the beat. And then she was like, oh my God.
At least you know she's got rhythm.
Exactly.
Good on you.
That's
These are-
intense. It's
It's an intense one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? I've really enjoyed that.
I loved
I
it.
need to lie down.
Yeah.
Lie down on a glass of wine. Bloody hell. Guys, thank you so
yeah,
much.
really
Thank you.
I've loved it.
What a wonderful chat.
Yeah, and you don't need luck with the podcast. I was going to wish you luck, but you're all
Don't need
you're
it.
flying
Thank
with
you.
what you're both doing. So good
Incredible.
luck with it all, and yeah.
Thank
We'll
you.
hopefully
Thanks
see you
so
soon.
much
Thank
for
you. We
having
love
us.
you. This was so much fun.
Love
That was a lot
Good.
of fun.
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you. Yay.